No, that's excellent. All right, really happy to be here with Ledger today.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be
Of
here.
course, my goodness. All right, a little bit about your background yourself, because I'd love to hear like the origin story of where you came from, what brought you to Ledger, and all
Sure,
that.
yeah, I mean, Ledger's been around for 10 years, and I've been at Ledger for about 3.5 years.
Okay.
I spent the first 20 years of my career in digital music. I worked on Winamp in the late 90s. I worked on Yahoo Music. I was the CEO of Beats Music with Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre.
Wow.
And then we sold that company to Apple, and I built Apple Music. And then I got a call to come to Paris and work for LVMH, the big luxury conglomerate with the Arnault family.
Okay.
And it was amazing. I really loved it. But one of the first people I met when I came to Paris was Pascal Gauthier, who is today the CEO of Ledger. He wasn't then. He was the first investor in Ledger, and I got lucky because I got kind of a ringside seat to Ledger by living in Paris and being friends with Pascal. And I'm just a person, I like to be at the forefront. Like to be honest, commercial internet of 6 billion people is less interesting to me than what I loved about the internet in the 90s, as an example. And so for me, the world of crypto is that. I mean, I really am a strong believer that we will have digital ownership in our digital lives. And I think even separate from digital ownership, Bitcoin is just incredible. Like, I think Bitcoin is probably the most important invention of my lifetime, if I'm honest. And it's just incredible that not only did we get digital ownership, but we got just this incredible asset created by somebody who was smart enough to give it away and not profit from it and then disappear.
Right.
It's
it's still so strange, right?
It's I think so. I actually think that there's multiple layers there. There is this just reality of having digital ownership in our digital lives, and that brings a new kind of freedom to humans, actually. But also I think that Bitcoin itself is worthy of examination. And so kind of having all of those beliefs and then having the good fortune of becoming good friends with Pascal Gauthier, I sort of found my way into Ledger through osmosis 3.5 years ago.
That's amazing. So there's been a lot of changes recently. In particular, we're very lucky to see something that's on the table right now. You have the newest iteration, which is now shipped to people, is that right?
It's starting to ship to the pre-order customers 2 days ago.
Okay, all right.
Finally, at long last, we introduced this product to the world in December of 22 with the intention of shipping it in March of 23. And now here we are in May of 24 and finally starting to ship to customers. We really did not, we had underestimated how difficult it would be to create these first of their kind screens. These are the first curved e-ink displays.
Amazing.
It's the first secure display, secure touchscreen ever brought to market, but it's also the first use of a new technology that's an organic TFT. So where most screens are silicon on glass, this is an organic substrate on plastic. So if you feel it, that's actually a plastic screen rather than a glass screen.
No, totally.
And so that it's quite a unique display. Technology's been around for about 30 years, and there was an attempt to bring it to market, an e-reader, about 10 years ago that just failed commercially. They didn't even get to market because iPad and Kindle were just so strong. But so Tony knew the technology existed and had the vision for this particular device. It's actually another story of me moving to Paris. Actually, another person I met right when I moved to Paris was Tony Fadell. Tony is, the pod father.
Yes.
He invented
Apple,
he invented the iPod, brought that to Steve Jobs, was a co-inventor on the iPhone, left and created the company Nest. He's a true inventor. Wrote the book Build. But his pitch to me was really as a friend, not as anything else. He said, "I think I know what your next device is." It's the shape of a credit card, and it sort of works as the new stack of cash.
Yes,
it was like Ledger customers have more than one. You can't tell which one you have. People put like tape on them and stuff to know, like that's that one, that's that one. It's like no, you're gonna actually use e-ink to be able to tell them apart. The screen is going to wrap around the spine, so you can read the spine and tell them apart, and that's the device. And we were excited. We found the suppliers. The suppliers promised us a date. That date turned out to be a pipe dream. But we did, at long last, get the product to market. So it's incredibly I mean, cathartic, to be
Yeah, I
honest.
bet.
I was going to
That's
say
gotta be a great
fulfilling, but
feeling.
this has been, really an emotional
Yeah,
week,
I
to
can
be honest with
imagine.
you, to finally start shipping these things to customers.
Congratulations, that's
Thank
amazing.
thank you very much. We did it.
Yeah. So a few questions that I'm kind of curious about. People that have used Nano before or whatever, it's about this size, right? So why does it stack? What's the point of that? If you have a device that can hold, and then another question is, like, yeah, so first address that maybe. Why multiples if someone typically would just buy one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's amazing when you work at Ledger and you say to people, oh yeah, I work at Ledger. So many times they go, oh, I've got 5 ledgers. And so I started asking people, why? Why do you have 5 exactly?
Right.
Well, people have them, for the same reason they have multiple bank accounts, right? You've got a checking account, a savings account, a brokerage account. If I ask you, how many bank accounts are in your family, including children, including your mom and dad? It's a lot of bank accounts.
Yeah.
So it's the simple answer is that's that. But there are also a lot of really interesting and creative reasons too. One person I asked that question to is somebody who works with a lot of different artists. And he explained to me that the very first thing he does when he has a new client is he opens a new ledger for them. So he doesn't ever mix up, that artist's, issue with another artist. They're also, so I think that there are a lot of reasons that people have more than one ledger. And all the time people tell us, and sometimes I see people posting on social media, a box of ledgers with like stick-it notes, post-it notes on them to tell them apart.
God.
So, I mean, for me, I actually I have a Mint wallet, and also not only is my Mint wallet, where I minted something on Art Blocks about an hour ago, but it's also where we have an app on here now called Security Key.
Okay.
And Security Key I also, by the way, for whatever reason, while I was sitting at the hotel a couple blocks away earlier, Google decided it was that moment to make me log in again, which for me meant I needed this because it's my passkey.
Okay.
So I can tap it with
Using that,
NFC,
all right.
and this is my passkey. So much better than using 1Password or Face ID or something as my passkey. This is much more secure. I'm actually using it on a secure chip, right?
Cool.
That's isolated. So I have, this is my carrying around wallet, right?
Okay.
And I also have, a wallet with, more serious holdings that are more deeper cold storage.
Okay.
I have one wallet that is just my NFT vault. So it's account segregation.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I totally get it. So if I remember correctly, you'll absolutely adjust this where it may. The original Nano S had capable of maybe 3 or 4 different cryptocurrencies. Then the X jumped that to maybe 20 or something like. And what is this?
Yeah, it's the same as the X.
Okay.
Basically, it's a little interactive because the applications are actually getting bigger.
Yeah.
Right. But the bottom line is there's plenty of space on these for the applications that you need.
Okay.
And also, with Ledger, it's super easy to add and remove. So even if you had a ton and you overdid it, you could always remove one, add one, and they're the same. Like when you put it back, all of your value is still there because it's tied to your private key, which unless you completely factory reset the device, never changes.
So a bit of controversy came up, I don't know how many months ago it was at this point in time. It surrounded the keys themselves, right? And so you all offered a new service that allows for people, if they were to lose something or forget something, this service would help recover that, right?
Correct.
So it's an opt-in, yes?
Yep.
What's been the reaction since, after the original kerfuffle? Are people starting to leverage it, use it?
Yeah, to be honest, it's very successful, commercially successful. People really do want the service. I think if you're somebody who's been in crypto a long time, then I think there was, first of all, we didn't do a great job communicating it when it first came out. And so I think that people didn't understand that it was an optional for-pay service. Also, we were certainly prepared for people to say, oh, that service isn't for me.
Right.
Because if you've been managing your own recovery phrase for 12 years, then the service isn't for you.
Right.
But for new people coming into the space, I mean, there are a couple things for us that tell us it's absolutely necessary. One, we hear the horror stories every day.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a crazy one today from somebody who has their company money there. They don't have their recovery phrases for a reason that seemed like a good reason. They're on 2 password attempts, meaning one more and it's gone. And they're completely freaked out, and they sent us a message into our CTO basically saying, okay, what's the back door? He said, there isn't a back door. They said, listen, if that's like something you say for PR, please, this is serious, I need your help. And he's like, look, we've designed the product, so what you're asking for is not possible, right? So it's not reasonable for a new, like if we really think, look here's the way to think about this. There are currently 500 million people on the way to 1 billion people who are in crypto overall. There are probably 10 million people in secure self-custody, right?
Yeah.
So for us to be even having a conversation about this is crazy.
Yeah,
it's really, how do we get that existing hundreds of million and soon to be more than 1 billion to come to secure self-custody? Write 24 words down on a piece of paper and have good operational security is not a reasonable.
No, it's not.
It's not a reasonable approach. So actually, what if you look at the response from people who are cryptographers and security experts was quite positive. They were like, wow, this is impressive, Ledger, nice work.
Yeah.
Like, this is incredible. Now, what we weren't prepared for is people who thought we were actually magic. There were people who said, we didn't know that you could do this. Well, the reality is, if you can sign a transaction, you can do this.
Yeah.
Whatever wallet signs your transaction could build Ledger Recover.
Yeah.
Right? So to be clear, and if your wallet is the attacker, you're screwed. Right? So you're going to have, unless you are literally writing your own wallet, you are going to need to put that trust somewhere. And so I really encourage people to read the white paper, examine the source code. The source code is all out there. Right? Examine the source code. It's been examined by professionals, but you are able to do that yourself. And you can see. And then I think also, please think about, how do we get billions of people to secure self-custody instead of, if on custodians, if not self-custody, why crypto? My perspective is that there are good custodians, and I think that they certainly have a purpose in the world. Right? We do as human beings need secure self-custody to have freedom, right?
Totally agree.
And have freedom of not only freedom of ownership, but freedom of usage of our assets, right? There's this thing in the middle, which is insecure self-custody, which has no place. It has no place. So secure custody, secure self-custody. Insecure self-custody is like dynamite. It's like playing with fire. It has no place.
Fantastic, and it makes tons of sense, especially when you're trying to onboard all these people in Web 2 to Web 3. Most are not going to want to deal with all those. It just gets to be too much. So it's a great option to have. Another thing came up that I'm kind of curious about. The scuttlebutt at some point in time was, does open source make sense? Because I believe that this is privatized, right? It's your own closed ecosystem.
We are 99% open source.
Okay. So, all right.
And we always have been.
Okay.
This is one of my like most hated pieces of FUD.
All right, that's good to know.
Yeah, so here's how it works. So inside this, inside Ledger devices is a secure element chip. Secure element chip is it's the same technology, chip and pin technology that's in your credit card. It's in your passport. It's technology that's been hardened over the past 30 years, really. And that really is where Ledger comes from. That's actually a French technology, this chip and pin technology. And the original idea was with Ledger was, could we use that same technology? When it's in your credit card, it protects the secrets of the bank, and when it's in your passport, it protects the secrets of the government. But could it be used to protect the secrets of users? And so it is. Now, the vendor of those chips, and secure elements are very hard to build. They take, multiple. It's kind of, if you started to build a secure element chip today, I would say 8 years, certainly 5 to 10 year journey to build a great one and to have it be hardened, etc. So those companies, and part of the security is things that are obfuscated and hard to know. So we built around that chip, right? So we're not allowed to open the code that talks to that chip. So that's the only closed source piece of what we do. Everything else is open source.
Interesting.
Always has been. We're actually refining that now and making it more readable. Like, one of the things we did around Ledger Recover was to make basically the menus and whatnot open source as well and more readable. So that's an ongoing project for us. And all of Ledger Recover is open source. So literally everything that can be open source is open source, and we're trying to make that more the case. Now, what the choice you could make is to go 100% open source, but then you don't have a secure chip.
Yeah.
So what I would say to someone who has that is, let's trade for 24 hours. You give me your device, I'll give you mine, and then we'll trade back tomorrow.
Okay. I hear you.
No one's taken me up on that yet. But that is, and we have a lot of information on the Ledger site and on our YouTube about side channel attacks and why a secure chip. I think it's really important for your viewers, listeners, to know, like, it's quite simple what you need to be secure. Like the checkbox would be, you need to have a secure chip that generates your private key and stores your private key.
Okay.
So that's check one. So you really have to have a secure chip. The second is you need to have a secure OS, because when the transaction happens, when the signing happens, it needs to, you can't pull the private key into the operating system and then put it back or delete it. You know, it has to stay there. And that's why having a secure operating system, secure input, and a secure screen is important, so you can do everything from the chip. And then the third thing is you have to have a secure display and secure input, right? And so what's magic about this screen is that this screen is powered by that little secure chip. So it's powered by a chip that was built for security, not for performance. So that's why it's actually kind of amazing that the team has managed to power a touchscreen with that secure chip. And so you need all three of those things. So you don't get that with a custodian, because a custodian is not your keys, not your coins. You don't get that with a software wallet, because a software wallet is running in an insecure phone and on an insecure screen. And you don't get that in, say, a signing device that doesn't have a screen, right? Because that's really just a signing oracle. And now you have to trust what your phone screen sees, which you can't. If you have a rogue app or if your operating system's been compromised, that can be compromised. So that's why Ledger is really the only thing that checks all of those boxes of, secure chip, secure OS where the operation happens, and secure input-output.
Okay, fantastic.
That's the checklist.
Okay, so lastly, back to this, because I'm really fascinated by it.
But it's kind of fun to like. I love
the magnets too.
Yeah, it's kind of it's. Oh, and check this out. These are the folios. The magnets give you some. Like, just put one in there. They're satisfying.
Yeah, I can, I
don't know about you. Like, you open and close the lid on your on your AirPods.
Yeah, of course.
Like,
that same sort of sensation.
I know. I do the same thing with these. I'm always like,
so cool. No, it's beautiful. Looks wonderful. I think one question I've heard people already start to talk about is when color, which I know is not easy to do.
Yeah. So we've it's possible.
Okay.
We have some prototypes. We know how to do it. There is color e-ink, so that's interesting. It's interesting. The color's not great yet. If you've seen color e-ink, it's worth looking at. So I think it's possible. Also, though, you know what? The product team, whenever we bring this up, because like I might bring it up or Pascal might bring it up, and their question is, why color?
Why?
And when you're signing a transaction, how important is color? And are you, the user, willing to sacrifice 70% of your battery life for a color signing device? So I think it's like I said. If you come to our lab, I can show you color.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we don't have a color device planned at the moment.
Okay.
It's on our. If you come to the lab, you can see that we're playing with it, but we don't have a plan for it at the moment.
I was in Paris 6 weeks ago.
Oh, you should have come by.
I know. All right. Anything else you want to highlight with regard to the device?
Oh man, like I said, we're just so happy that it's here. I mean, I know that people. I completely appreciate that people didn't know exactly what was going on, and the reality is that if you'd have asked me in January for a time, I couldn't have given you one. And the last thing I want to do is put my neck out there and say, I think it's going to be May, and then be wrong. I can't afford to do that. So, here's the one thing I would really beg your viewers to do, which is to go to our YouTube channel and watch the 25-minute version of what took us so long.
Okay.
I'm very proud of it. Our partners are. It's kind of, you see Tony, and you see what Tony had in mind when he invented this. If you go back and listen to a podcast with me and Tony from December of 22, I tell the story of Tony telling me about this design and then saying, but don't tell Pascal because I'm not sure it's possible yet. So the reality is that we knew it was on the edge of possible. We just got comfortable with the possibility, and then we were too soon.
Very cool.
And the documentary, I call it a podumentary because it's really more accurate. it does tell the story pretty well. And it also, I think that people think like, oh, it's a curved e-ink screen, but really it's the world's first organic TFT. And that's something quite interesting and different. And when you hear in the podumentary that this is the type of thing that might be in an AR glass 10 years from now. And I would love to see that and then look back and go, yeah, the first time that technology was used was in Ledger Stax.
So cool.
So yeah, I would. That's the last thing I'd like to say is I hope people take a look at that and they go, wow, like I love crypto, I love digital assets, but just on the display technology side, that Ledger Stax is a really interesting product.
Totally
like
cool.
that would make me happy too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really
Thank
appreciate it.
you for yours. I super appreciate you talking to me.